Vladimir Putin has just signed a decree allowing the seizure of U.S. assets in Russia as compensation for the unjustified deprivation of Russian property rights due to U.S. sanctions. The decree enables Russian authorities to seize movable and immovable property of the United States, American companies, and citizens located in Russia, including securities, shares in Russian companies, and other property rights. Under the procedure outlined in the decree, the Russian government or central bank can file a claim in court to establish the fact of unjustified deprivation of property rights due to U.S. actions and seek compensation. If the court accepts the claim, it will refer the case to a government commission that will identify specific U.S. assets in Russia to be seized, taking into account the principle of proportionality to compensate for damages from seized Russian assets in the United States. Alright folks, we have a lot to break down in this video. It's going to be an extremely heavy but important topic. The conversation I have with people about the possibility of our assets being seized or confiscated is always a very serious and frightening one, and rightfully so. But we've always talked about that from our own government possibly confiscating our precious metals. For example, Executive Order 6102 by FDR in 1933 confiscating everyone's gold, saying, give us all your gold or you're going to pay a $10,000 fine, 10 years imprisonment, or both. But then the following year, 1934, he also confiscated everyone's silver, requiring the delivery of all silver to the United States for coinage. So he confiscated people's gold and silver. But the possibility of another country, let alone Vladimir Putin, confiscating and seizing our assets, that is a whole other level of terrifying. But first, before everyone starts freaking out and panicking, we have to look at this rationally and realistically and see what it's actually mentioning. But first, if you wanted a cheap, safe, reliable place to buy your gold and silver, well, look no further, because Miles Franklin is the best. Every single Monday, there's new deals as well, so tomorrow stay on the lookout. Right now, Philharmonic's $3.15 over spot, but if you want something much cheaper, we have Buffalo Rounds for only $2.35 over spot. We have 10-ounce bars as low as $2.25 over spot, like 8 different types of 10-ounce bars, 100-ounce bars, 1,000-ounce Comex bars. We have Constitutional Silver, $3 over spot. We have anything and everything you could possibly think of. Hit me up, slayer@milesfranklin.com, or call me 330-485-6172, and I'll make sure you're taken care of. Okay, now let's move forwards. Vladimir Putin signs decree allowing the seizure of U.S. assets. So, Putin signs decree allowing for use of U.S. assets to compensate for Russian property seized by Washington. Before you have a panic attack, just listen what it's actually saying. Vladimir Putin has signed a decree allowing the seizure of U.S. assets in Russia. So if you live in Russia, as compensation for the unjustified deprivation of Russian property rights due to U.S. sanctions, the decree enables Russian authorities to seize movable and immovable property rights or property of the United States, American companies, and citizens located in Russia. See, located in Russia, American companies and citizens' assets located in Russia. I don't think they mean actual people, but it is worded that way. But it's including securities, shares in Russian companies, and other property rights. So under the procedure outlined in the decree, the Russian government or central bank can file a claim in court to establish the fact of unjustified deprivation of property rights due to U.S. sanctions and seek compensation. It's so crazy though, because it's not their fault that the United States just keeps sanctioning Russia time and time again and holding their own assets at will against them in our country. So it will identify specific U.S. assets in Russia to be seized, taking into account the principle of proportionality to compensate for damages from seized Russian assets in the United States. That is crazy. The principle of proportionality, I mean, this is just the start. They're just starting in Russia, but what's this going to look like moving forwards, and how is the United States going to retaliate? The court's decision allows for the termination of U.S. rights to the listed property and transfer of those rights to Russian claimant as compensation. That's another crazy part. Listen to this. The court's decision allows for the termination of U.S. rights to the listed property. If you live in Russia, you have no rights to your property, and that is claimant as compensation. The Russian government will determine which body is authorized to file claims in court. Putin instructed the government to implement measures to enforce the decree within 4 months. I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form when it comes to this stuff. I have one brain. This video will have thousands of views, so one brain versus thousands of brains. I'm sure you guys can put together a better understanding of what this is going to look like moving forwards and what this really means. I just like bringing the information to the table. I'm not saying I'm the one that knows it all. I'm sure a lot of you are a lot smarter than me and a lot more educated. I just do the work, make the videos, and bring the conversations to the table so you guys can talk about them in the comment section. So I'm glad that this article from the Silver Academy did give context, though, because now we're going to break down the context of what led to this and what happened. So Professor John Mearsheimer's central argument is that the United States and NATO are primarily responsible for provoking Russia's invasion of Ukraine by expanding the NATO alliance eastward towards Russia's borders, despite warnings from Russia that this was an unacceptable threat to its security interests. Mearsheimer contends that after the Cold War ended, the U.S. and its NATO allies should not have continued enlarging NATO and bringing it closer to Russia's borders, as this was perceived by Russia as an existential threat. He argues that the U.S. pushed to have Ukraine join NATO, which from Russia's perspective crossed a red line, as Ukraine is a crucial buffer state for Russia's security. Mearsheimer claims the U.S. and NATO allies dismissed Russian security concerns and warnings about Ukraine joining NATO, essentially backing Russia into a corner where it felt compelled to invade Ukraine to prevent it from joining the alliance. He believes this U.S.-led NATO expansion towards Russia's borders was the primary driver behind Russia's decision to invade rather than offensive motives by Russia to rebuild its empire. However, many analysts have criticized Mearsheimer's thesis, arguing that it ignores Ukraine's sovereign right to choose its own alliances, dismisses Russian imperial ambitions, and places too much blame on U.S. actions rather than Russian aggression. Critics contend that even if NATO expansion was provocative, it does not justify or excuse Russia's illegal invasion of a neighboring country. Now, I think this is kind of missing the forest for the trees, playing the blame game. Regardless of whose fault it was is irrelevant. You could say that Russia had a choice or that they didn't have a choice, that the United States did this strategically. Regardless, who cares? Why? Because it already happened. So now let's move forwards looking at how to fix it. I'm not one to sit and whine and complain in the moment about things that already happened, because that does nothing. I could be using that time focusing on how to fix the problem moving forwards. And what this guy's opinion is, to me, honestly, is irrelevant. Why should we care what Mearsheimer's thoughts are on who he thinks fault it is? I don't get why that matters. I mean, everyone has a right to an opinion, and I guess some people care about other people's opinions on things like this. But anyways, I'd love to hear your thoughts, because looking back on, confiscation of metals, let's say that, and we could even switch topic, because this is a great time to talk about the possibility of even the United States confiscating our precious metals, because it's happened before. People say, well, Slayer, they did it with people's gold because gold was money, and back then it was for monetary purposes. True, but also there's more context. I mean, he also did confiscate people's silver. A lot of people don't even know that FDR confiscated everyone's silver a year later, Executive Order 6814. Most people don't know about this one. The most popular executive order is 6102, but not everyone knows a year later he also confiscated everyone's silver, and he had the same penalties: $10,000 fine, 10 years imprisonment, or both. And $10,000 fine back then is like hundreds of thousands of dollars now. And the scariest part is the "or both" situation. Imagine having to pay $100,000 in fines, 10 years imprisonment, and 10 years imprisonment. I mean, that's insane. But, you know, my thoughts are, and then we can go through this executive order because a lot of people are wondering about silver confiscation, and they say, well, if I have United States coins, they'll be exempt from being confiscated, or if I have, or these types of coins and that, I have a lot of conversations with people on the phone about this. They're trying to figure out which would be exempt from confiscation. So we'll go through what happened before because that's our only frame of reference, but it could be invalid because the reasons why they would confiscate people's silver nowadays would not be the same reasons as they did back then. Anytime there's been silver confiscations or gold confiscations or we'll just say precious metals, it's always been in times of economic turmoil, war, or financial insecurity, right? Because it's used from the monetary perspective. I made a video before going through every single time throughout history where every country has confiscated the people's gold and silver. It's happened plenty of times, but it's always the same variable because it backs, we determine a country's wealth on how much gold they have, right? But this time would be different for silver because it would be for its industrial uses, not for its monetary uses, because we need so much silver for military, for going green. If we're trying to push zero net emissions by the year 2040 and we can't make enough solar panels to push the mandated, amount, then what are we going to do? Well, there's only so much silver in the Earth's crust. What are we going to do? Mining innovation? I mean, silver is already a byproduct. It's harder to find. Most silver's thrown away since it is mainly an industrial metal. So mining innovations, okay, maybe we'll up it. I mean, we're talking about demands of 1.2 something billion ounces with production declining, and we're already over 500 million ounces in the red, a deficit of over 500 million ounces in the last 3 years alone, as demand for silver is skyrocketing in all different sectors. EVs, I mean, every automobile company by the year 2030 is going to be an EV. So that's more silver needed in EVs. Solar panels is blowing through the roof. Then you have 5G towers, silver lithium-ion batteries, colloidal silver in the medical world. It's used for everything and anything you could think of, satellites. And then you have military, though. That's the biggest missing puzzle piece that I've finally put together thanks to John Forrest Little from the Silver Academy, showing how much silver is needed, like in a Tomahawk missile, 500 ounces. How much silver is used in some of these torpedoes, 11,000 ounces. I mean, we're talking about massive amounts of silver that the military needs, and that is also why you saw the military raiding our silver stockpiles last year. And that's why you're going to see a lot of silver just vanishing and poofing. Why? Because you think that the military is just going to stop making missiles and torpedoes and all this because we don't have enough silver. They're going to get their hands on silver some way or another, regardless if they raid our own stockpiles. Who cares about a freaking solar panel or a satellite when we could be using that to defend the country? I really hope they would use the silver for military over going green when we don't even know if global warming and climate change is a real thing anyways. And actually, silverwars.org, they break down the entire timeline of the United States involvement with silver, backdating 1960, I'm pretty sure. Let's check it out. Watch this. This is silverwars.org. It shows an entire timeline from the military's involvement with the silver shortage or silver and what's led to it. Here's the Department of Defense in troy ounces. You can see National Defense Stockpile. You could see it's plummeting. Unveiling the untold story. A silver timeline starts 1968, like I mentioned. The NSA's silver recovery programs created, and then you have the Washington, D.C. transfer of silver to DLA strategic and critical stockpiles, 8.9 million ounces of silver at the DOD. And then you have Department of Defense, U.S. Geological Survey, Minerals Yearbook, salient silver statistics. And then all of a sudden, and right here shows this marks the last time the U.S. Geological Survey reports the number of silver ounces in the National Defense Stockpile. Why? Why are they just suddenly not reporting how much silver? I'm sure you could guess why. Why does the Silver Institute not include military in our annual numbers? So when it says 1.2 billion ounces, it's actually a lot higher. And that's because supposedly there's more silver used in military than solar and EVs alone. And solar is the number one, that's the top sector that uses silver. So we're talking about a much higher demand, but that's also meaning a much larger deficit. So you can see support of American Silver Eagle Bullion Program Act is passed by U.S. Congress. And there's actually this, I don't know if it shows it in here. No, it doesn't. There was a petition that people signed to let the military get first dibs on silver. And this was back in the day, a long time ago. This was a long time ago. And I'm talking like decades upon decades ago. They were trying to, I forget what the actual order was, but they were trying to make sure that military got silver before other uses, since silver is used or needed in military. I mean, look at this. 165 million troy ounces from Treasury to the DLA. Right, Treasury Department executed a transfer of 165 million troy ounces of silver to the strategic and critical stockpiles under management. And then you have, I'm not going to go deep into this because I've already covered this. You just go to silverwars.org if you guys want to check out the ins and outs of that. But the whole point of getting back to my point is, if we were going to confiscate our silver, it would be for industrial uses, military, not coinage. So now let's go over what the Executive Order 6814 was talking about. So this is silver required to be delivered. There shall be delivered in accordance with the terms of this order all silver situated in the continental United States on the effective date hereof within any of the following categories. Okay, here's the categories. A, silver coins, whether foreign or domestic. Okay, that already blows out the window, everyone. Everyone was saying, well, if I only have U.S. minted stuff, they can't confiscate that. No, it's coins or domestic. Foreign or, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. B, silver of a fineness of 0.8 or less, which has not entered into industrial, which is industrial, commercial, professional, artistic, or monetary use. C, silver mined after December 21st, 1933, and that's why you have the pre-33 gold stuff, which a lot of people like because they say that could be exempt. But then you also have here, where's Executive Order 6814? Let's go back to that. Then you have silver mined after December 21st. Silver held for industrial, professional, artistic use, and unmelted scrap silver and silver sweepings, the amount not exceeding in the aggregate 500 troy ounces belonging to any one person. Silver owned on the effective date, recognized by foreign government. For such silver contained in articles fabricated be held in good faith for specific customary use, not for their value as silver bullion. So time and place of delivery. It has to be before 90 days of the effective date to the nearest mint where the silver is situated immediately prior to delivery, provided falling exempt shall be delivered 90 days. Okay, it's just a whole bunch. Okay, so reimbursement of costs. You can see here, Secretary of Treasury shall pay all necessary costs actually incurred. And that's another thing. A lot of people are wondering, well, if they were to confiscate our silver, well, they would have to set the price to something, right? Well, yes and no. Like, they could set the price, but what if it's just whatever spot price was at that day and time? Or, I mean, who knows, right? This would be such a unique situation. You couldn't compare it to the Executive Order 6814 because, one, like I said again, it would be for a completely different reason, and two, we're talking about a completely different time frame. Like, the days back then are a lot different than the days now. But who knows? Who knows what it would look like? I never thought they would bring back the gold standard, and now 4 states already have passed it, and I think like 20-something are also trying to pass the same thing. So who knows? We're living in crazy times, so expect crazy things to happen. for better and worse. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap this video up here, folks. Let me know what you think about it. I thought that was pretty interesting. I mean, just the thought of Russia being able to, seize U.S. assets in Russia is a scary thought. And I don't know what that could move forwards to, or if this will have any type of ripple or domino effect. Let me know what you think. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed the video. This is Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.